Welcome to the Delineation, an astrology show with Cam White.
Welcome back to the Delineation. It has been a while. For the past couple of episodes, I've been doing interviews with people, and that's been something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. However, it's not something that I'm going to be doing consistently. Again, a big part of this show is just pretty much having a platform for me being able to speak about something that I want to talk about. And every now and then I have the great opportunity to talk to someone about some of the things that I want to talk about. It's been a while. It's been a couple months since I've done an episode. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I just want to make the quick announcement that these episodes will be becoming more consistent as time goes on. So welcome back. I'm super glad you guys can be here. I really hope you enjoyed the last few episodes of all the interviews I got to do with people. They were a lot of fun. But today we are talking about Jupiter and Aries. And we're not talking about, what does the transit mean historically, or any of the kind of regular astrology stuff. I really want to talk about what you're supposed to be doing with Jupiter and Aries. If you remember what I talked about, if you watch my weekly horoscope, I've been talking about Jupiter and Aries for quite some time. I mentioned about May and June. I've said this so many times. May and June were a microcosm of the next 3 or 4 years. Why is that? Here, let me actually pull up the chart for this. I actually wasn't going to do this, but let's actually do this. So here's why May and June are the microcosm. So let's go backwards here. And this is going to be important for why I'm talking about Jupiter and Aries. So around May, we had that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, right? That was at about 24 degrees. Then we had, about a month later, a Mars-Jupiter conjunction at around that 3 degrees mark. Why is that important? Number one, Jupiter typically plants seeds. Like specifically, Jupiter rules like semen, so it's like literally like a birth giver. Jupiter rules both life and death. It rules drunkenness and sobriety as well. So there is this kind of two-way street with Jupiter. But I mentioned so many times that at the end of May, when Mars conjoined Jupiter, this was planting the seeds of things that we're going to reap over the next 3 or 4 years. The reason being is we had that eclipse again on Jupiter Neptune. It was at 28 degrees Pisces. It was the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. Let's fast forward to 2025. When we look at 2025, Saturn is going to conjoin Neptune at that same degree that Mars conjoins Jupiter at. Now, this is important. This is Aries. This is Mars's house, right? So you have Jupiter in Aries conjoining the ruler of the sign that it's in, Mars. So there was something that was initiated, something that was started, right? Now, Jupiter went a little bit forward in Aries, retrograded, went back into Pisces, stationed direct, and now is back in Aries for the next few months. This is important to know. When we get to about 2025, I want to show you everything that's going on in this part of the chart. So pretty much when we get to about, this is February of 2025, look how many things are going on here. The North Node goes from Aries to Pisces, so there'll be eclipses in the early degrees of Aries, late degrees of Pisces. Venus is going to go retrograde at this part of the sky at 10 degrees Aries. Then Mercury will follow along, and Mercury will station direct at this part of the sky with Venus. This is all during eclipse season, right? The sun's with the North Node. And then as we move forward, Mercury and Venus will go back into Pisces, and they'll station direct on Saturn. And then Saturn will move forward. Neptune moves into Aries. And then Saturn will as well go into Aries and conjoin Neptune again for I believe, the actual first time. So when you talk about astrology and these transits, you want to look at where's everything going on in the sky? Are things going to repeat? I've talked a lot about the reason why Pluto and Aquarius is such a big deal is because when Mars and Saturn conjoined at 0 degrees Aquarius, we had the lockdowns. Jupiter-Saturn conjoined at 0 degrees Aquarius. We had the vaccine rollout. And then Pluto is going to hit 0 degrees Aquarius. So it's going to continue these themes that started with those transits. This is the same thing. Now, Mars-Jupiter, this is doing something, initiating something, going big or going home, maybe biting off more than you can chew. Saturn-Neptune is crystallizing that. I mean, you can probably argue Neptune's going to be dissolving it or making it confusing or blurry. But nonetheless, Saturn going here is putting this area of your life into much more of a reality. Now, when you talk about Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, this is about like virtual reality, augmented reality, all of those things I've talked about. But what I'm here to talk about today is Jupiter in Aries. The reason being is we only have a few more months of Jupiter in Aries. And what is Jupiter in Aries about? Number one, something I've talked a lot about is knowing fear and doing it anyway. This is so important to understand because I want you to think about what was going on in May and June. What did you start? What did you initiate? What were you just kind of going for? As Jupiter retrograded over the summer, you might have lost a little bit of that confidence. You might have had to go back and relearn things or think about how you were doing things more. This time around, as Jupiter goes into Aries, it's time to take action. Something that I've been hearing more and more lately that has been not only resonating as true, but I've been applying it in my life and I've seen a lot better results is beginners overvalue thinking and undervalue applying. So many of you guys are just trying to learn the right thing and you need more time or you need to understand this more, but you don't apply things. Like, for example, I say this to everybody who wants to be an astrologer. Like, read the books, do the courses, that's fine. But you need to start reading charts. The way I got good at what I'm doing is, of course, yeah, I read the books, I read the ancient texts, but that came later. What really got me going was reading charts. My first job, like the first time I ever read charts was I was literally DJing at an art show, and I asked the art coordinator, the art curator, there we go, if I can put up a little booth and read charts. And so I did. And it kind of progressed from there. You are never going to be able to learn something unless you actually do it. If you're too worried about all of the knowledge and, if you're going to Virgo it and look for all the details and try to get everything specific, you're never actually going to know. The only way that you're actually going to know is through applying things. And this is important because Jupiter is about belief. Jupiter is about faith. Jupiter is about abundance and hope. If you are taking this Jupiter and Aries time to not do anything, you're going to get nothing out of it. And arguably, things will get worse. The price, something I just heard recently was the price of procrastination is the life that you could have lived. I've told people this time and time again. The reason why I do what I do and I'm so ambitious about the things that I do is because I don't want to be 70, 80 years old on my deathbed and looking back at, I had these dreams, I had these ambitions, and I was too much of a pussy to actually go and do them. It's not about whether or not you fail or not. It's about whether or not you do it. And let me tell you, it's pretty hard to fail if you just keep consistent and do it. But the big thing that I see with Jupiter and Aries is fear. So many people are scared. With Aries, we're talking about confrontation, action, fights. This is a very passive society that we live in, where those things aren't valued. And we live in a society where motivation is a really big value. The reason being is society in this world is very soft, so to say. Like, you have your food, you have a place to live. Everything is taken care of. Back when we were hunter-gatherers, you had to survive. You had to take these actions to survive. That was the motivation factor. And when you take out the survival mechanism, it's really hard to gain that motivation. This is why motivational speakers and all of the stuff that you see online is so popular, is because people legitimately need that. That is actually a valuable service. So when we talk about fear, what are you actually scared of? Something, again, when you are procrastinating, like, again, I've said this time and time again, idle hands are the devil's workshop. I used to think that was a quote in the Bible. Apparently it's not. But it's one of the most truest things ever. I've told people time and time again, if you want to get out of your anxiety, if you want to get out of your depression, do something, especially something that you can put your hands on and that you have to focus on, because when you're focused on something, it's hard to think about all the bullshit in your life. I've said this before with my clients. Like, I love doing client readings because it's an hour out of my day where I can just get out of my own self, get out of my own body and help someone. And in that moment, in my subconscious, I'm bringing up all the good things. I'm bringing up all the amazing things that I could share with people. And I'm not worrying about my bullshit. The way out of your bullshit, the way out of your fear is just doing it. No, you don't need to know enough. No, and again, I hear this time and time again with all types of things, whether it's the right job, whether it's the right relationship, whether it's having a kid or not. So many people are like, well, I'm not ready. Well, I just don't know. And this and this and that. You're never going to be ready. A lot of Jupiter and Aries is just doing it. If you want to learn, you're going to get better knowledge from just doing it. This is why in a lot of the job market, people value experience over knowledge. This is why, like, again, some people like to think that you can just get, you go to college and get a job and that's the way to go, when most employers actually value people with the experience. And the reason why I think this is so important is I want to talk about risk and reward. We're going to have only a small window of Jupiter and Aries. Jupiter enters Taurus in May, and it's a big transit, right? Jupiter's going to enter Taurus. It's going to conjoin the North Node, and it's going to be there until about spring of 2024. So we get a full calendar year of Jupiter and Taurus. I want you to think about things. Again, I've told people about that I do like the carnivore stuff. And what I really appreciate about learning about that is learning more about ancestral diets and what we actually had to go do. When you put in that work, when, we used to go hunting, less gathering, but more hunting, and you faced a megafauna, you had to, slay some beast. What was the reward out of that? You got to get food. You got to live another day. And this is the biggest thing with Aries and Taurus. If you want to enjoy and you want to have pleasure, the only way to get that is through action. And this is really important to understand because I'm a big believer at this point in my life in my studies that I could argue, and I've said this for quite some time now, I really believe that, Venus and Jupiter are much more of the malefic planets than Mars and Saturn. I mean, when you read, again, this isn't me being biblical or anything, but the Bible talks about like lust and, slothness and gluttony being, these, sins. And there's so much truth to that, right? Like, regardless of what you think religiously, there is a truth to that. Now, in this society, we're so pleasure focused where give me more. I just want to have pleasure. I just want to seek pleasure. Nothing about actually doing any kind of disciplinary work. That Mars-Saturn stuff, time and time again, I see people do less of the Mars-Saturn stuff and more of the Venus-Jupiter stuff. And you have to ask yourself, when is it harmful and when is it helpful? Like, so many people, again, I love talking shit about this because so many people in the astrology world are like, oh, bad Mars transit, love yourself. If you want to do Mars remediation, hug a big teddy bear. And that's not what the fuck it is. So many people love to say that they're like the child of Saturn and, I love Saturn, yet they're not disciplined. They're not grown up. They have zero maturity. They act like children. And the thing is, in life, you can get all of this pleasure. That shit's easy, whether it's drugs, vices, anything like that. It's you could just go outside and go get any of that stuff. The Mars-Saturn stuff is stuff that you have to earn. And this is something that I did a whole delineation episode about. I believe it was episode 11, earning versus manifesting, because I get really sick of the spiritual being like, manifest this, manifest that. If you are not taking the appropriate action to get what you want to manifest, you're not going to get it. Shit isn't just going to come served to you on a silver platter. And yet half of the spiritual people think that that's what's going to happen. It's delusional. If you want to get the things that you want, you have to create a system and you have to apply that. Again, another saying that I've heard recently that I really like is losers have goals, winners have systems. Because if you're so worried, and I've said this before, the man who likes the walk goes farther than the man that likes the destination. And you have to understand, in order to create any type of lifestyle that you want or to have any type of success that you want, you have to create a system that's going to get you there and apply that system. It's not about, oh, I have this goal, so let me, just get to this goal. Create a system in which the goal comes along the way, because you're going to have other goals. You're going to have bigger goals. And as long as, if you don't have a system to get to where you need to go to be those, whether it's a personal development system to where you can just get out of your own way, whether it's an efficient work system, whether it's a system that you put on within your relationships to, manage stress or to manage fights, you have to have a system. And there's so much of this Jupiter and Aries stuff of just kind of like people being a deer in the headlights of just like, oh, I have all of this stuff, but I'm so scared. And then they start overthinking and overthinking and overthinking rather than just doing it. I've used this analogy before, but it's so true. And I use this analogy because I learned it the hard way. When I used to race motocross, you got two options. If you want to hit a big jump, you got to just fucking pull the throttle. Fifth gear pin, go all the way. The second you get in your head and you overthink it and you bog down a little bit or you get scared, that jump can go from either super fun and you can land it, or you can fucking end up killing yourself. And back when I used to ride motocross, I did this as a kid. I mean, like there would be times where it'd be super easy to do it. And then maybe I'd get in my head and then I'd case a jump or I'd crash. And then that resulted in broken bones and things like that. If you want to just get the result, you have to take the action. You have to get out of your head. And the best way to get out of your head is by taking action. And as Jupiter's in Aries, you're going to learn how to do all of this stuff just by taking action. And it's not about thinking about how am I going to take the action? Just do something. You know, I've told people time and time again, like some people might look at my YouTube and might think I'm super successful. I look at my YouTube and I look, man, I could do so much better. But regardless, the only way I got here was I did video after video after video, not really knowing what I was doing. And I did it for 2 years, like just off of my car in the desert somewhere. And I learned through that process. I didn't get the result I was really looking for, but I created a system to where now I can apply that system at the highest degree and I can get the result that I'm actually looking for. You're not going to know exactly what to do, and that's okay. You don't need to know what to do. You just need to take the action, because as you take the action, that reinforces the learning programs. So I want to talk about that analogy of fear. You might have heard this before, of false evidence appearing real. I want you to think about times in your life, specifically when you were a kid, when you were afraid of something. Let's say you were afraid of monsters under the bed. Or if you were like me, I was really scared of the dark. There was a certain point in my life where I had to just go out to go. Like, let's say I was a kid, I had to go to the bathroom. Most kids had an issue wetting the bed, but I had a problem wetting the bed. And they got to a point where I knew the repercussions of if I pissed myself. And I know this is a funny analogy, but like, this is real shit. I knew the consequences of that. My mom, I had to start doing my laundry when I was like 5 years old. My mom didn't give a fuck. She was like, if you're going to piss the bed, you got to fucking wash your own shit. So I knew the repercussions of that, but I had this fear of the dark and I had this fear of getting up. I was too stuck in my head. But you know what I did? I got to a point where the consequences of not taking action outweighed the consequences of facing my fears. And guess what? There were no monsters under the bed. Guess what? It's just dark. Nothing was there. And I was able to go to the bathroom and I never had that issue again. Think about what issue you have dealt with, because you guys have all done this shit before. Like anything in life that you are struggling with, you have done the same mind work and the same belief work before in the past, right? You are not a child. You're an adult. You have figured shit out before. How can you just take your past and use it to apply your future? This is what I do with my client readings. This is a big part of annual perfections and the natal promise that I talk about. This shit's all been done before. And all we have to do is just take a part of your past and see what was going on there and see how it's going to relate to the future. And then you could take those same lessons from the past and apply it to the future. What are you so scared of? And at what point in your life are the consequences of not taking action going to outweigh the consequences of taking action? For example, let's just talk about health. You know, if you're diabetic, obese, again, this is all stuff that I've struggled with. So I understand this. This is why I've done my everything to get more on top of my health. And this is something that is a big thing that I'm working on for 2023, because I struggled with like addiction and I got back into that. And I'm now applying, again, these things that I already know, this time, hopefully with better results. But at what point is resisting that action and the consequences of that outweigh the consequences of just taking the action? Let's say just even going to the gym. You know, you putting that off, you being scared, you being afraid, which, whatever, all your fears are valid. I mean, in my opinion, this is something else I heard just recently, that emotions aren't valid because emotions change. And that kind of really changed my thinking, because over the years, I've really started to agree with like, yeah, your emotions are valid. Yeah, they're real. But when I heard this, the guy said, no, emotions are real, but they're not valid because they change. And I want you to think about that. You might be scared, and that's a real feeling, but it's not valid, because if you start, again, think about all of the things that you've done in your life where you might have been scared to do it before, but then you just started doing it and you got over that fear. Why did you get over the fear? Because you just did it and you realized it wasn't that scary. You realized it wasn't that big of a deal. This is something I like to talk about with Pluto, for example. On my live stream, Ask Me Anything that I do on my Patreon, someone asked about Pluto. And my best analogy I can think of with Pluto is it's a two-way street. let's say you're out in the woods and a bear comes up to you. What are you going to do? If you turn around and you run away scared, that bear is going to chase you and you might die. But if you just summon up all of the power within you and you raise your hands and you scream and you yell and you charge that bear's likely going to run away. I want you to think about that bear as all of the problems and the fears that you have in your life. Are you going to back down and run away and have them chase you and then you get killed by them? Or are you going to rise up? And again, the idea of a human conquering a bear is really, really wild, but it's possible. And this is what you do. I don't know. I see videos of this all the time of people scaring bears away. What action are you going to take? Are you going to run away and cower in fear? Or are you just going to muster up? Again, you don't have to have courage, but this is the thing. When you're facing a bear, it's a life or death situation. What bear is in your life? And again, some people love to, look at their problems and just minimize them. How minimal, like, for example, your dreams. Again, this is why I like this quote. I've got some things written up here. The price of procrastination is the life that you could have lived. Regret is your guideline. What did you regret from the day before? What did you regret last week? What did you regret last year? And why didn't you do that? And how long are you going to live in regret? And we're so good at mental gymnastics of being like, oh, well, it's not that big of a deal. Or, oh, well, it was really hard. So, let me just pat myself on the back. You guys, you have to be harder on yourselves. This whole bullshit love and light of, oh my God, like it's okay, you did your best. No, until you get the result you're looking for, you have to keep doing it because you can do that for the rest of your life. And then guess what? You're going to be 70, 80 years old and you're going to be fucking miserable because you just pussied out and you justified the inaction that you took and you're going to sit there miserable. And then that's going to translate to if you have kids, you're going to be an asshole to them. If you have people around you, you're going to be an asshole to them. You're going to be full of resentment. You're going to be full of pain. Because guess what? The shit doesn't go away. Like something I really love about working with older clients is, and I just brought this up in a weekly a while ago. Like they're also learners. They are also still those kids that they were when they grew up. So often people think that once they turn 60 or 70, they're going to have life figured out. You're really not. Like you have a lot of wisdom and you have a lot of knowledge and there's a lot of things that you can figure out. But this life stuff in total, a lot of people don't figure out. A lot of people die before they figure it out. And I'm not even saying I have it figured out, but I at least know that if you just put off all of these things, you're going to end up miserable here in the future. If you keep resisting these things, you're going to be miserable in the future. If you just look at the action that you have to take and you ignore that and you stay complacent, you're going to regret that later. And that regret's going to come up in a lot of different ways. It may not just be emotional. It could be physical. It could be mental. It could be financial. Why this is important is if you take the action now, you are going to get the reward later. This is what Jupiter and Taurus is about. If you just face the bear and you just take this action, a lot of Jupiter and Taurus is about reaping the rewards of that, right? This is Jupiter, the sign of abundance, the sign of hope, the sign of belief, and the sign of value, beauty, connection. Are you going to earn it or are you not? I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to manifest something off of a whim, it might feel good, but you know what feels even better? Earning something. Because you actually gave something to the universe. This is a universal contract stuff. Like the universe doesn't just give you anything without you giving anything back. If you want to receive something, you have to give something. That can look a lot of different ways. Some people do magic and they have, a system in which they apply to where it makes sense for them in their brain. But what work, what virtue are you going to earn? What are you going to apply in order to earn the things that you want? Because I'm telling you, whatever goal that you want or whatever dream or whatever success looks like for you is going to feel 10,000 times better if you earn it. This is why I heard this about like trust fund kids. Like most people know about like trust fund kids that have like a lot of money and, kind of had everything handed to them. A lot of them deal with drug problems. A lot of them are the most crazy people you ever met. And I forgot where I heard this from, but someone was talking about a kid that they knew that had a trust fund. And he said, imagine anything that you do in life. All of the work that you could put in meant nothing because you're already taken care of. If you just stumbled upon $10 million, and again, money's going to solve a lot of your issues, but then it's only going to solve money issues. Then you have to solve all the other issues money can't solve. Let's say you just stumble upon $10 million. Sure. Are things going to be fixed? Yeah. But how good are you going to feel about that money? Realistically, it might feel good for 5 minutes, but then you didn't earn it. So it doesn't mean anything to you. So you're going to blow it here. You're going to blow it here. That's why a lot of these lottery winners go broke after a couple years because they didn't earn it. It has no value to them. But when you put in that work, when you put in that effort, that actually creates value. And this is the whole reason I'm doing this podcast. Jupiter and Aries is about, like, I don't care how scared you are. I don't care if you don't know enough. You just have to do it. And you're going to learn along the way. And guess what? You are going to fail. People are so afraid of failure. And I don't understand why, because guess what? No matter what you do, you are going to fail. All of life, especially social media, only highlights the successes. This is important to understand. And, I know you've heard this 1,000 times, but I want you to really believe it. I need you to understand it. They only highlight the successes. You don't see what failures they had to go through in order to get there. I mean, like, I believe the creator of Honda engines had the same issue. It took him like a super long time to get the engine right. And then, of course, has like one of the most successful car brands of all time. I forgot the specifics of that story. I just remembered it right now. But you're going to fail. But I'm going to tell you something. Your fear of failure is just your weak ego getting in the way because you think you're supposed to be this amazing person, this successful person. And guess what? Even the most successful people fail. They fail time and time again. And you need to rewrite the beliefs in your brain that say failure is bad. And you need to rewrite them to say failure is good. Because what do you get out of failure? Some people fail and then they just give up. And that's stupid because you have an opportunity to extract value and get a lesson and not do it again. For example, remember when you were a kid and you touched the hot stove? That could be looked at as a failure. But you know what you learned? You went, holy fuck, I'm never touching the stove again. You took that horrible lesson and you learned from it. And now you can apply it later in life so you don't feel pain. This is the same thing. Fail, fail, fail. Fail your way upwards. I know that's a saying that people are familiar with. But if you're so afraid of failure, then you're going to be afraid of success. Like, realistically, if you are too afraid to fail, you're not going to get your success. If you're too afraid of looking stupid, then guess what? You're going to never get exactly what it is that you want. You got to look stupid. Do you know how many times I've looked fucking stupid talking on camera and doing my stupid videos? I look stupid all the time. Read the comments. That doesn't stop me because I have something in my heart that I need to do. And this is something I wanted to talk about is listening to your heart. Like, I get so upset when I do. Well, again, my place as an astrologer is really interesting, but I get very upset when people tell me, when I ask, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they go, well, I don't know. Well, that's bullshit. You know exactly what you want to do. But you've had, whether it was your childhood or your friends or your partner or society or your own fears tell you that that's dumb and that's impossible, or that you're not good enough for it, or that you're not worthy of it. How many times are you going to listen to every other person around you and not listen to yourself? Because here's a reality check. Everyone around you is temporary. Everyone around you is going to die. And they're not going to be there when you're on your deathbed and you're going, wow, I was so concerned about listening to everyone else. I didn't listen to myself. And now here I am. It's just me. And that's all you have. If you've got a support system, that's great. If you've got a family that's going to be there for a long time, great. That's very lucky of you. But you have to understand your job is to listen to what your heart's desire is calling you to do, whatever that is. Like, I think about the Wright brothers, and this might be a corny analogy, but you have to think it was probably a very shared common belief that it is impossible for humans to fly. And you know what they said? They said, well, what if we just did this? Or what if we tried this? And they tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried until they actually did it. And then lo and behold, you can take a fucking jet from LA to New York in just a couple hours. If you listen to everyone else around you, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get their fears. You're going to get their anxieties. You're going to get their insecurities. But you have to listen to yourself. Because no one's going to be there to support you. You might have some really cool people. And if you do have them, you're very fucking lucky that will support you and that will motivate you. But most people are haters. Most people are going to project their anxieties and their fears onto you. I'm guilty of that. You're guilty of that. We all do this because we're all human beings, right? We're not perfect. But it's a matter up to you of whether or not you listen to them or how much you listen to them. And if you maybe take it with a grain of salt, and is it feedback? Because feedback is mostly valid, but sometimes harsh. Or is it just blatant criticism? And does that stoke all of your fears and your anxieties? But let me tell you, why are you listening to people tell you what you can and can't do? I can go over again. This is something I think so many people think about. So many people with disabilities, whether they don't have arms or whether they're blind or whether they're deaf. And not every single one of these people are going to be successful because they don't apply this, but there are so many examples of people that have struggled with actual disabilities. Like, for example, you guys might not know this. I grew up in a really Christian household and my parents were obsessed with this stuff. So one guy I know is this guy named Nick Wojcik. He has no arms, no legs, turns into this really big pastor and has these motivational speaker and he's doing all these good life stuff. This guy with no arms and no legs. You have arms and legs. And I just saw this video of, it was like, it was something on YouTube, where they get like a group of people and they talk about, whatever. And it was all these people with disabilities. And it was this guy with like really tiny arms and this girl with no arms. And he was like, yeah, it's really hard to do stuff. Cause I don't really have the biggest arms and it sucks. And this girl's like, well, at least you fucking have arms. And I can't imagine being disabled and then having another disabled person tell me you have it fucking good. That would have been a fucking reality check for me. But you guys need to check yourself. You're able-bodied. And even if you do have a disability, guess what? That doesn't fucking matter. That's all in your head. Not, again, if you have a physical ailment, that's real, but your negotiation that you have of, oh, well, I have this X and Y disability. Especially when people are like, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, so I can't do X, Y, and Z. That's all in your head. There are people that have way worse situations that don't listen to that shit and they make it happen anyway. So while Jupiter is in Aries, I need you guys to actually start applying these things and taking action, knowing fear and doing it anyway, knowing that fear is false evidence appearing real and just fucking biting the bullet and going for it. Action alleviates anxiety. So many people are so anxious, and I think there's a plethora of reasons why. I know I talk shit about ADHD and anxiety, but they're real things. I'm not denying that they're real, but I do deny the fact that these are things that are going to completely inhibit you from doing anything. Stop. Get over yourself. You're going to be fine, okay? But action is going to alleviate that anxiety. Anxiety is just not putting action. When you're like, oh, I really want to do this thing, and then you go into your head and you just start thinking about it and you go, well, I want to do this. I want to do that. And then you go, well, what can go wrong? This is going to go wrong. This is going to go wrong here. And then you spiral out of control when you could have and you put so much energy into spiraling and you just put so much energy into thinking why you couldn't do it when instead you could have just put that energy and just did it anyway. How many of you want to do YouTube but are too fucking afraid to turn on the camera and just speak in front of it? I looked stupid for 2 fucking years in front of my car in the fucking desert with no money and did that shit anyway. And when I went through that, I had to go through a lot to learn what was the right way to do it, what was the wrong way to do it. But I did it anyway. And yeah, I was fucking scared. Do you know how, again, back in 2015, 2016, when I started this stuff, yeah, astrology was stupid, especially I'm a straight white guy. Do you know how much I still get shit talked about me for doing this type of stuff? But I don't give a fuck because I actually believe in this shit. And I know how much this has helped people. And I've helped thousands of people's lives at this point. Why would I listen to someone's stupid, goofy opinion about astrology when they don't know fucking shit about it? And I do. And I understand the value in it. And I know how to fucking apply it. And I'm the one that's over here changing lives. And they're over here being the ones that talk shit about something they don't know anything about. Have some fucking confidence. So many people with this, most of your, most of people's mental issues are this lack of confidence. And confidence is earned. Confidence is gained. For example, if you're some guy that has all these insecurities about how you look or how you talk, if you're too worried about those insecurities and you never talk to a girl, you're never going to get laid. But if you just act confident, this is something too, you kind of have to fake it till you make it. If you don't have that confidence, well, guess what? Fake it. And then if you do it time and time again and you fail and fail and fail and fail, you're going to actually gain some confidence because you might fail 5 times, but on that 6th time, something works out. And that's a confidence boost. Now you actually have confidence. You guys have to stop valuing thinking about it, and you need to actually start valuing applying it. And this is that Jupiter and Aries stuff. All of the wisdom of Jupiter is in Aries. It comes from action. It comes from just doing it. It comes from that spark of life. The sun is exalted in Aries. If you want more of that motivation, if you want more of that confidence, you want more of that willpower, guess what? It comes from action. If you're not listening to your heart's calling, that voice is only going to get louder and louder as you grow older. If you ignore that calling, you're only going to exist in resentment, pain, and act out in revenge. You need to listen to what your heart is telling you to do. This is why I made that episode on my Delineation podcast called How to Live Your Purpose. So many people are so upset, like worried about, what is my purpose in life? What does my chart say? You know what your purpose is. It's in your heart. It's in your soul. It's just a matter of how much you actually believe that's possible or whether or not you're willing to take the action and fail to see if you can get there. And again, my other point with the purpose stuff is like, your purpose isn't even about you. Every other person that you come encounter with will tell you what your purpose is in their perspective. The way to live your purpose is by living your truth. And so many people, I hate that saying of living your truth, but like your truth is like what is literally in your heart and not this like, oh, what is society telling you and how can you connect the two? It is literally listening to what is inside your heart, not what everyone else is telling you, not what your group that you like to be associated with is telling you. What does your fucking heart and soul scream at you? And we're so good at ignoring it. So many people ignore that heart's calling through drugs, through alcohol, through all of these things. They just repress and repress and repress and repress. And they just ignore that shit. And then it turns into health issues. It turns into relationship issues. It turns into money issues. You have to listen to your soul. You have to listen to your heart. You were implanted with this stuff when you were born. It's very simple. And it's going to be hard. None of this shit is easy. Like so many people in the astrology world love to just be like, well, life can be a walk through the garden and it's all this privilege talk. Like you've got to earn this shit. And it's going to feel so much better when you earn it. When it's just given to you on a silver platter, it's not going to mean fuck shit because you didn't fucking earn it because it doesn't fucking matter because there's no value associated to it. But when you put in that blood, sweat, and tears and you actually do that work and then you get that reward, it can be the smallest amount of reward. It's going to feel amazing. I remember when I first made my first fucking dollar, I literally made $1 off of a consultation when I was doing that art thing. I think I talked to 6 people and one person gave me $1. And it was like, it was $1. But that clicked, that rewrote a belief in my system that said, wow, I can actually earn money doing this. And that changed everything because I earned it, right? No one just gave me $1, just said, here's $1. Doesn't mean anything to me because it's just someone else's dollar. And the thing is, if you're too worried about, oh, well, I don't know what to do and I'm not sure, figure it out as you go. Just get started somewhere. And a lot of this stuff of figuring out as you go is like, for me, for example, there was so much of my life with astrology that like I have an ego, right? Like we all have egos. And I had this idea in my head that I was doing things the right way. Well, I did it and did it and did it. And then over time, I was like, wow, I'm not getting the result I want. Maybe, and then it took all of this doing something in my own way and not getting the results I wanted to figure out, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can take my ego out of this and really look at what other people are doing, what's successful for other people, and how can I apply that rather than thinking I'm right and I know everything. If you want to know, you've got to like just start applying stuff and you're going to figure out along the way. A lot of this stuff is just getting out of your own way, guys. It's all just about getting out of your own way. And the way to do that is by becoming a beginner, becoming a student, not worrying about being an expert or being perfect. Because guess what? You're not. Sorry to tell you, but you're not. I'm not. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. But the difference between me and you is that I've got the wisdom to know that I get in my own way and that I'm willing to get out of my own way to apply things that other people have done to be successful so that I can be successful. You can't just observe everything. You can't just study and not apply. This is about applying. And I cannot emphasize this enough. These next few months, we only have a few months of Jupiter and Aries, are the time to just apply it. And you're going to reap so many rewards when Jupiter comes into Taurus. That's what Jupiter and Taurus is about. Like we're talking about, stability, finances, value, connection, indulgence. This is Jupiter, abundance, faith. It's going to hit Rahu right when it goes in. There's so much coming towards your way that is good. But my question for you is, are you going to earn it? And are you going to actually value it? Or is it just going to be given to you and you're not going to give a fuck about it because you didn't do anything for it? These episodes of the delineation are going to be much shorter. I can't always be doing an hour and a half long just rant. So I want to end it here. They're going to be somewhere between 30, 45 minutes or something like that. But I think I've said what I needed to say. We only got a few more months of this. You need to take action now. What are you resisting? Resistance becomes resentment, and resentment becomes revenge. What are you resisting? Why are you resisting it? Get over it and just do it. Wherever that's at in your life, whatever you're afraid of doing, just do it. I'm going to leave you guys off with that. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you guys soon.